Hi, buddy.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Very good.
That is good. And you've got the new album, which is, well, it came out on June 30th.
It did.
Was it happy, to actually finally get it out there?
Yeah, no, it's great. It's really exciting. It feels like there's a lot of interest in the record, so it's been great, really.
Right, yeah, because you do actually say that this album documents your transformation and I guess not only finding who you are but actually having the strength to come out and say who you are. But I actually do not really know your old music, so has this actually been a progression throughout your albums that you've been discovering yourself?
Yeah, that's sort of what all of the music is about, really, just varying different levels of self-exploration. So it's sort of to a point with this record, or not a point, but I mean, every couple records, it seems like, I don't know, there's a lot that happened between this record and the last record.
Right. Well, you've gone through a lot of band lineup changes, of course, and unfortunately last year you did lose the other member who had been with you from the start, Dan. So have you gotten sort of to accept the fact that the band's probably going to continue to change, but it's still going to continue?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of been that way for the entirety of the band. I mean, I don't know if people remember, but we've never really had solid members. I mean, almost every single record we've had new members. So I'm pretty used to it at this point in our career that we're going to have different members every single record. And honestly, I don't think it really changes. I mean, I think it changes some things, but I honestly think that it's really honestly helped the band. I think it's made the band a better band to have so many different people's creativity in it.
Can I ask actually when you became Buddhist and how you found that?
I sort of always dabbled in it. I've already kind of known about it. I learned about it at a young age. So it's been kind of around me, but I didn't really dedicate myself to practicing until about 2013. Mm-hmm. I just sort of came to a point in my life where I needed to change. I needed some answers. I'd been kind of going in one direction and finding that it wasn't helping my anxiety, my depression, my sadness, my grief. I kind of, as people get into their 30s, either they, I think, try to find ways to resolve those issues or they try to find ways to cover them up. And I knew that the covering up thing wasn't going to work. I don't really have a choice. The way that my nervous system works is it's very, very fragile. I can't really cover things up, as sometimes other people can have an easier time, sort of covering it up. I can't do that. So I found it very difficult, and I found that I needed something. And Buddhism has always been something that, I really was drawn towards it because of its four main teachings. So there's many teachings, but the first teaching, grouped into four sections, is there is suffering. Suffering meaning the really large term in the English language. I don't think it really translates really well, but the idea is that there's a sort of unease to life, that at its base, life is unsatisfactory because for these reasons, one being everything dies. I mean, no matter what it is, it's not going to last forever. There's an impermanence to life. So, no matter what, there is this unsatisfactory nature to our lives because they do end. And that, just pointing out that there is suffering, that there is this sort of feeling in the world that some of us have felt more of than others, but when I sort of recognized that that's what Buddhism was teaching, was that we all sort of have this suffering, it made me sort of feel safe. For some people it can be a real bummer to realize, there's all this suffering, but for me, I've always had this suffering, I've always had this hardship, so it was really yeah, absolutely, I can totally identify with that. And then it goes on to say that there is an end to this suffering, and to end this suffering is the Eightfold Path, which is the main teachings of Buddhism. So it sort of gave me sort of okay, obviously, yes, I am dealing with a lot of suffering. I'm dealing with a lot of anxiety, a lot of pain, a lot of addiction, a lot of this. Here's the reason why I'm dealing with it, because I have craving, which spoke directly to me as someone who is, an alcoholic and a sex addict. I'm like, oh, well, of course, that makes perfect sense to me. A lot of my unhappiness comes from this need and want to act out sexually or in addictive patterns. And then it was like, oh, there is a way to end this. So it was like this perfect thing that just spoke to me really poignantly, and it was like, this sort of encompasses everything I want and what my life has been like.
Yeah, and you actually said that you have a nervous system that makes it hard for you to hold things inside. So it's actually easier for you to share who you are with the world and face criticism than to keep it inside yourself?
Yes and no. It really depends on the day, the criticism, and all the other factors that go into that. But honestly, it really depends. But yes, I'm willing to trade criticism to get my story out, if that makes sense. I think that's...
Personal freedom.
Yes, personal freedom.
Then, well, obviously you don't drink anymore or have the problem. Hopefully you've gotten over your sex addiction. So what's it like now when you're actually doing all the stuff like performing and writing and all that without having those crutches?
I mean, for the most part, it's pretty easy. It's come pretty easy to me, but on certain tours like the one we're on right now, which is Warped Tour, I found it pretty difficult to sort of, I don't know, just, God, it's like, how did I used to withstand this amount of stress and sort of the rigors of touring and being away? You know, how do I do this being sober? So, that's been interesting. I've had to sort of deal with that and find new ways to feel comfortable in situations that I would normally have just gone and drank. You know, I would have been like, well, I'm just going to drink now. So, but I don't have that there. So it's trying to find new ways to, you know, a lot of what Buddhism is about accepting the way that it is, not in a way that I'm going to accept, like, being in an abusive relationship, but literally, like, right now I have anxiety, or right now, you know, this specific thing is happening in my life, and what it asks us to do is be aware of what's happening, and then to sort of be aware of what our judgment towards it is. You know, is it pleasant, is it unpleasant, is it neutral? And then we can develop a way in which to appropriately respond to that. You know, appropriately responding to someone physically beating you is to either fight back or to leave. Appropriately responding to your own anxiety is sort of being there for it, nurturing it, not necessarily going and drinking. So a lot of what Buddhism affords me is the ability to respond appropriately and instead of pushing away situations, whereas, you know, a lot of what we do is avoidant patterns in our lives as human beings, especially now in the digital world. We can avoid everything. And, you know, avoidance is not living in reality. It's not dealing with what is. So it's really part of my practice being on tour and trying to cope with the things that I don't find so pleasant and dealing with them in ways that are appropriate.
Yeah. And at the moment, of course, we did mention you've got the album out, which is called Pull the Thorns from Your Heart, which is a really cool name. I love that screaming angst sort of music. But how does it feel to you, like having that? I guess you've explained there's chaos in Buddhism or accepting that, but you are like, that's a lot of, I don't know, angst and that you're putting out. I feel like you must be in some sort of different mindset when you're on stage and actually performing this music.
Oh, yeah. I mean, absolutely. I mean, I wouldn't say that I'm in like a peaceful sort of mind state, but it's like, I think people have a misconception about what Buddhism is about. I think we, in our like Western idea, think that Buddhism is about being peaceful, and there is a lot of that. I mean, there's, you know, take a vow to, you know, non-violence, but there's also an appropriate way to release tension and things like that, and through music is one of them. You know, for me, I use it as a way to get rid of some of these emotions and I wouldn't have other ways to do it. So the songs are meant to be cathartic for me and for other people, and allow people to have that release in a way that's a safe environment rather than going through these things alone in your head or turning towards other means of coping.
Yeah. You'd be so interesting to sit down and talk to you. You've got a lot of interesting like concepts and that. But what would you like people to actually know about the new album?
I want people to know that there's not many records like it. And, you know, regardless of whether you like the record or you think it's worthwhile, I mean, I think that I want people to check it out because it's a record in this genre, somebody making heavy music, talking about their sexuality and not being straight. I don't know anyone else that has ever done that in this genre of music. And I think it's a really important record for people that identify and for people that don't identify to recognize what that sounds like sonically and lyrically, somebody going through the process of that. So I think it's much bigger than it just being a piece of music. And I know, you know, of course, I don't want to come off as having any sort of hubris or anything, but it's like, I'm not going to like put all my life into something and then sort of sit back and say that it's okay. You know, it's like, I think that this is the best thing I've ever done and the most important thing I've ever done in my life. And, it doesn't really matter if it's good or not. It's not about it being good. It's all subjective. Art is subjective. The idea of rating it and saying if it's good or not is really irrelevant. It's really, are you able to appreciate somebody's representation and honesty of their life in their art? And, people that make good art put every ounce of themselves, even parts of themselves they don't know about, into their art. The goal of this record was to challenge people emotionally to be able to be with this record. Like, I hope that it is too much for some people. Like, I hope that it emotionally challenges them to the point where it is physically difficult to listen to this record because there's so much emotion on it. That is what the goal was, because that is what my life has been. So I really wanted to portray, like, how can I portray how my existence is into music, into a record? What is my experience like? My experience is overwhelming. Sometimes it's overwhelmingly good. Sometimes it's overwhelmingly awful. Sometimes it's overwhelmingly poignant, a mix of both. So I really wanted to convey that. And, that's what I want people to take away from the record. It's not about whether it's better than our old stuff or whether it's even your favorite type of music. It doesn't matter. There's something that happened on this record that I think is different than what is going on with a lot of other people's music in this genre that I know of. And I think that that's what I'm asking people to check out. Not necessarily, hey, do you like this song? No, can you take a minute to check out someone else's experience and see what it's like to live in a different type of perspective?
Yeah, well, I think when you are, I was going to say brave enough, but I'm going to say actually giving enough to actually put your truth so far out there for people, they at least deserve to give it a listen and find if there's something that they can connect to in it.
That's all I'm asking people to do, is just that, really.
Yeah. I will actually tell people the record is out through Pure Noise and Sony, and they can find you at facebook.com/censorsfail. And you have any idea when we might see you in Australia? March next year? You've got a tour being organised or already set up for March in Australia?
It's pretty much already organized, and we're working on it now. We'll probably announce in the next couple months, maybe a month or so. Awesome. And we're hitting all the major spots. So
yeah, can't wait for that. It's like, I actually, like I said, I didn't know you before this, but I really like what I hear. Actually,
thank you. I appreciate that.
That's okay. Thank you very much for your time. It has been great. And Censors Fail 6th studio album, Pull the Thorns from Your Heart, is available right now, and I do suggest everyone go out and give it a listen. Grab a copy so you'll know the words when they come to Australia in March next year.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your time.
I will hopefully see you when we come down.
Well, yeah, and hopefully we'll get to have another chat when you are coming down here too.
Wonderful.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.